Okay, Kang-Ming. So if Christianity is based on faith in the supernatural world, whereas science is based on facts in the natural world, then they are considered incompatible. So to what extent do you think this is correct, this kind of statement?
Yeah, this question actually reflects a very common perception that there is incompatibility because science is based on facts, but Christianity supposedly is based on faith. But I think the question is based on wrong premises.
Okay.
I think in reality, Christianity is not just based on faith, but Christianity is based on facts. Why? Because fundamental to Christianity is the understanding that God has revealed himself in his mighty works in histories, and this revelation was witnessed by other historical people, let's say in Israel, and the early disciples of Jesus. And Jesus himself, in as much as we talk about God, is regarded as God revealing himself.
Historical person.
Historical person. So, in other words, Christianity is not just about speculations. It is based on historical facts. And if these are historical facts, they can be studied, analyzed, and verified accordingly, even though we say the verification is not in the lab. So let's clear the question about the wrong, based on wrong assumption. But regardless, you look around today, there's still the myth perpetuated in the media that there is this conflict between science and Christianity. And some of them are very well-known academics actually. So if I may give some examples, this myth was started long ago already in England, for example, and the US. So you have this famous book, A History of the Warfare of Science and Theology in Christendom, by Andrew Dixon White, and it's published in 1896. So this 1896. So these are historic books, you may say, influential. But what was perpetuated in print books nowadays is diffused even more widely with the advent of television. So some years ago, in 1980, the famous scholar, journalist, writer Carl Sagan had this, I think, the 13-part series called Cosmos, A Personal Journey. Of course, the whole description of science is based on one that does not need, if not refute, Christianity. Recently, you have Neil Tyson.
Yeah, he's still alive.
Yeah, he tried to duplicate, update what Carl Sagan has done. So while Carl Sagan described his TV series as Cosmos Personal Journey, it has the same title, Cosmos Space-Time's Odyssey. Sounds grander actually, sounds grander. Well, this is the television series. I mentioned about famous academics, people like Richard Dawkins, who wrote many books about evolution as a replacement, a valid replacement of Christianity. And in other words, he says, in fact, unlike Christianity where we only speculate about God, he says the non-existence of God is a scientific fact. In fact, science has disproven the existence of God. The non-existence of God is a scientific fact about the universe, which is discoverable in principle, if not in practice. So these are public science spokespersons, and they all conclude there is that conflict. Historically, they also cite one example, Galileo, in the who lived 1564 to 1642. Supposedly, Galileo applied Copernicus' model of the solar system. Prior to Galileo and Copernicus, the church being influenced by Greek philosophers say, oh, the center of the universe is the earth. So, and then around the earth you have the moon, the other planets, including the sun, and then the stars. And then Galileo supposedly came along and said, my telescope tells me otherwise. The earth actually is moving. And he was put on trial. He was tortured supposedly. I think it merits more explanation later.
Good.
But for the time being, I would just say, in short, what happened between Galileo and the church was not Christian faith versus science, but ancient science versus modern science. So we need to clear all this myth.
Okay, so in conclusion, we can say that Christianity is based on historical facts.
Yeah.
Right? So there's no incompatibility. Is that correct?
certainly, I think I would say there's no conflict.
Yeah.
But in another sense, both of them do offer reliable answers. It's not one is right, one is wrong.
Okay.
Both of them offer reliable answers, but they approach their subject matter from a different angle. For example, science focuses on discovering the mechanics, the dynamics of creation. Christianity focuses on the wider questions about the nature of man, his purpose in life, his stewardship of creation.
Okay.
So in that sense, they are both reliable domains of knowledge, but there's also an overlap. And so, in that sense, scientists and theologians ought to appreciate each other's contribution to the field of knowledge, in that they complement one another. And the conflict, so to say, arises only when the scientist try to speak out of his domain of expertise.
So does it mean that as a scientist, you can also be a faithful Christian?
Oh, certainly, there are many well-established scientists who are publicly known as believers. John Polkinghorne, for example, hit the headlines. One of England's top nuclear scientists has decided to become a priest, and he wrote and he won some books from there. So, but let me just summarize one more point. When we talk about conflict, we talk about kind of a rejection of one another. I think the Christian has a more positive outlook. The Christian says, all truth is God's truth. And if all truth is God's truth, scientific truth is also God's truth. So rather than becoming defensive, we should try to integrate even scientific knowledge into Christian